Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Ben Grant joined as always by JB, and we're here to get you set for the East Final with the Toronto Argonauts traveling to Montreal to take on the league best Montreal Alouettes. Lots to talk about today. We're going to go through, first of all, some ties to some coaching staff moves, and maybe we got to discuss that. It's sort of a next year topic, but it's come up this week, and so it goes into our news section. Also, we'll talk about the English TV ratings from this past week's game, the East semifinal, up 51% from last year. We'll get into that a little bit. I want to talk about the practice facility situation that the Argos were using this week because it was a little bit out of the ordinary. Does that impact the team going to this huge playoff game? Plus, the Argos made a signing of a futures player for next year. We'll tell you a little bit about him. And the CFL award nominees came out. We'll look at maybe who was missed from the Argonauts and who they got right. And a last look at PFF. Chad Kelly once again topping the charts with his huge game last week against the Ottawa Redblacks. And then we've got all our usual stuff, game previews, injury reports, OCDC, one thing, predictions, put me down for 20, and our CFL picks. All that and more coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, huge news this Saturday. You got to get down to Something in the Water because they're treating it as a home game. They're going to set it up. They're going to go with the big screen. They're going to go with the big sound, and it is going to be broadcast from the tap room, Something in the Water Brewing. You got to get down there. I can't. I'll be in Montreal for the radio broadcast. JB, will you be going to Something in the Water Brewing this Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned to you earlier in the week that we should go down. Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a great place to watch the game, and they do it up right, and they have great beer, and I think that'll be a fun Argos vibe for an afternoon game.
Yeah, it should be awesome. They're going to do all sorts of stuff. It'll be a big party. So make sure you get down to Something in the Water, watch the game with fellow Argos fans, and watch the game with JB. And have a drink. They're getting low on Longboat Pale Ale, but they'll make it through to the end of the season. So get your Longboat Pale Ale while it lasts. Make sure you get down to Something in the Water Brewing for Argos Alouettes on Saturday. All right, JB, let's get into this thing. So pretty surprising news out of Calgary this week. Special teams coordinator and assistant head coach Mark Killam, his contract's not going to be renewed. Defensive coordinator Brett Monson also is not going to have his contract renewed. The reason that this is an Argos story is that we know how tight Coach Dinwiddie was with that coaching staff and how many players came over from Calgary when Dinwiddie was first hired. These guys are a big deal. Killam especially. Killam has been in Calgary for forever. He's been the special teams coordinator there for like 15 years, was the strength and conditioning coach before that, defensive coach, linebackers coach. He's done it all, but was given that additional title back with his last contract of assistant head coach because he's such a valuable person to have on staff. He's going to be sought after around the league. The Toronto Argonauts, I'm sure, would love to have him as part of the staff, and yet, I don't know if there's a spot. Mickey Donovan is one of the best special teams coordinators in the CFL, if not the best. You've got a great coaching staff that has put together an amazing season for the Argonauts this year, and yet you can't help but look at those two guys, Killam and Monson, but especially Killam, and say, like, is there room somewhere here? Is there an offer that you can make that he would accept? Because surely he's going to be sought after by a bunch of teams looking to give him maybe even a head coaching job. What do you do in a situation like this?
Yeah, I would bet that, that they might look at offering him like an assistant offensive position. But I would imagine that will not be the best offer he will get. Of course, you like to bring in, there's no cap on that. I think you want to bring in, you want to bring in as many good coaches as you can. But I can't imagine that Toronto would offer him the best opportunity because I would imagine, excuse me, I would imagine that's, look, there's going to be lots of, I don't know if he wants to be a head coach, but there's going to be lots of teams who will want him to come and revamp their special teams, So I would be shocked. But you never know. Maybe if he wants to come for a year and work with the offense, and maybe contribute to special teams. I think that makes sense. But I would be very surprised if he didn't get a much better offer from a team who's looking to improve.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I actually really like that idea, just giving him some exposure to the offensive side of the ball to round him out as a coach. But I think there's going to be some, like, I was going through it though. Like, I don't know where that spot is though. Like, I don't know where you'd bring him in where you just blow him away. Like, where can you give him more than what he had in Calgary? I'm not sure there's a great answer for that this year unless you're maybe thinking about what the situation would be in Edmonton. I think that's probably ends up being maybe the most likely destination. We'll see how that all shakes out. But yeah, if the Argos have an opportunity, these are guys that you have to at least talk to. And I know Coach Dinwiddie and his staff, they've got a relationship there, obviously, and I'm sure they won't leave that unturned and unexplored. English TV ratings, huge this past week, 51% up from last year. Now, some factors in here that go into it, but I think overall, that's a really positive sign. You're talking about numbers close to 1 million. We're not even factoring in streaming, and we don't know what those numbers are. But just on pure television ratings, to be close to 1 million viewers for Argos and Ottawa. And Ottawa, Ottawa-Toronto, that's not like a historic rivalry or anything like that, the way that it is with the Hamilton-Toronto rivalry. It should be. It's not. What do you make of numbers like this?
I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, to be honest, I suppose I could have prepared. I don't think the Eastern semifinal was on CTV last year.
It wasn't. No, it was just TSN.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, that's going to have a huge because CTV, excuse me, is essentially available everywhere.
Yeah, that does make a difference. But the fact that they even outdrew the West semi, which is between BC and Saskatchewan, that was close. So they outdrew them by 9,000 or so. So it was tight. But BC, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I think you have more TVs. Obviously, Toronto is a bigger market. I think that rather than Hamilton versus Montreal. But I'm fascinated by it because maybe last year it felt kind of, Toronto was so dominant. It felt like the semifinal was kind of a waste of time because Toronto had just crushed and was expecting the crush all the way. So there was less excitement about it. Maybe people were excited about Ottawa beating Toronto. People love to hate watch, and thought that there was a good chance maybe Toronto could get upset again, and that's going to attract a lot of people who doesn't love to see Toronto lose. But yeah, I mean it feels kind of out of nowhere. It doesn't feel part of a huge wave of CFL attention, but I mean, it's fantastic.
Now, the skeptics will look at these numbers and they say, yeah, but you go back to like 2017 and numbers were higher than that. But that's sort of pre-streaming being a main thing. And I don't know what those numbers are like. And I can't talk intelligently about that. And I haven't really been able to get an answer on what those numbers look like at all. So it's really tough to go and compare to TV numbers of days past because it's just not the same environment anymore. And so
No,
I
I mean,
think you just look like year to year and you say, man, this is a massive improvement. That's a good thing.
yeah, I know I've read about, television shows that were, canceled in 2014, that if they had their 2014 rating share now, they'd be massive hits.
Right.
Because there's just so much more to watch. There's Disney and Crave and yada yada yada. It's endless. Yeah, no, look, I think it should be celebrated. I think people were interested. It was an interesting matchup. Maybe people were tuning in to see, if Toronto is going to stub their foot or not. I would imagine these Toronto Montreal ratings are going to be really big. I can't imagine why it won't build on it. I think both these semifinals are amazing matchups. I can't imagine CTV is not over the moon. There's no way they could have expected that.
Yeah, I think I'm sure everyone's excited by it, and I bet that this week gets over 1 million. It's the same time. It's that 3 o'clock, that magic 3 o'clock Saturday
Perfect.
start.
Also perfect, perfect time. Like that's the time CFL. 3 o'clock Saturday, absolutely a perfect time for a Canadian football game.
And you add those RDS, CTV, TSN numbers all together. It's yeah, we're gonna be over 1 million people. I
I
think.
agree. When you add RDS, there's no way it's not over 1 million. I agree. I'd be shocked.
And of course, we're not mentioning the fact that it was a fantastic football game. Like, who doesn't love it's a record-setting number of points? And so, anyone that even flips by the channels are like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" It's they've already scored 87 points. Maybe I'll watch the end of this game.
Arena football.
It was that was something. I want to rant a little bit about the lack of availability of facilities in Toronto. This hasn't really been talked about anywhere that I've seen this week, but I know you and I, as coaches, have gone through the frustration of trying to find indoor practice facilities for cold weather, for iced out fields, and the difficulty of it can't be overstated. In Toronto, even more the case. Just aren't facilities in Toronto. The city is so crammed to get anywhere, you've got to go west or north, one of the two. The Argos having to do a little bit of both this week because the regular practice facility, Lamport, I believe it's getting the bubble put onto it over the last couple of weeks. And so last week they were out practicing at Centennial Stadium. This week was a mix of Centennial and Soccer World up Martin Grove. These aren't convenient. You're having to bus a much longer way than usual, and it's just not the right time of year to do it. And that's, it's the same thing with us. We were always doing this during the playoffs when you ran into snow and ice and other issues like that. I hate seeing them have to do that, but there's no other answer. I'm looking to you, JB, for a solution. How can you fix it so that at this time of year, can they negotiate with the city and say, look, I know you want this bubble. I know it's huge for revenue because there's nothing else in the city that has this. Can you hold off at least until we're done here so that we can finish up practicing and preparing for our playoff game? I don't know what the answer is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it probably speaks to the nature of the Argos. That's life in the big city if you're not the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a lot of moving parts, and you're not the loudest voice at the table.
And there's a billion hockey rinks. Like if they needed a hockey rink, you can't walk a block without finding an old barn like a hockey rink. But something as big as a football field, a soccer field, there's so many out west. And just going back to what I was saying about my kids, they're involved in a lot of sports. They do a lot of activities. Almost nothing they do is in Toronto. It's almost all west because that's just where the fields are. The football size fields, the facilities, the turf fields, the fields that are kept. And, it's a shame that there just isn't more in the city. But yeah, I hate when I see them having to travel like that. I know it's been worse. There's certainly been years where it's been really rough, whether it's at Don Bosco or up at York University and wherever else. This certainly is good. The Lamport situation is great. I just hate having to kind of send the team on the road for practices during such an important week. But they're used to it now. They've done it for a few years now, so I'm sure there's grumbling about it. But at least it's not new for anyone on the team or anyone on the coaching staff. So I guess there's that.
And unfortunately, Lamport sort of prevents it from being a crisis level situation where maybe you would talk to MLSC about, much like the Leaf practice rink, and then they kind of turned it into a rink for use for everybody. You'd love to talk to MLSC about building a practice facility that could be kind of the center of Toronto football, Toronto high school football. That would be amazing. But there's not really anywhere to build it. But I mean, something like that. I mean, that's the kind of plan you'd love to see. That if the city and MLSE could get together and kind of create a domed football stadium that could be the central piece of Toronto football.
It would be awesome. I don't know where you'd put it. Like it's just
No,
not anywhere convenient is the problem. So again,
you
it's
know,
just
you'd
a
have, yeah. I don't know. That's true. I mean, it would take a lot of work to think that through, but
The Argos have signed a new player to a futures contract for next season, Marquise McLean. I want to tell you a little bit about him. Marquise McLean, listed at 6'3", 210, big body receiver, really good change of direction, hard runner, a guy that started his university career at Auburn, didn't see the playing time that he was hoping. He was there for 3 seasons. I think he only had 3 catches for 83 yards over those first 3 years. Wanted more playing time, ended up at Southern University in Baton Rouge, and ended up 28 catches, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. And so there are some numbers there. There's certainly ability there. What I like about him, though, and again, you always look for that one thing. I for his size, for that height and weight combo, his change of direction jumps out. That's something that raises your eyebrows. And so we'll have to wait and see. You know, any guy for next year, we're talking about training camp and stuff like that. It's another offseason topic, but the signing was made this week. That's the one trait I think that maybe could make him a player up here, is that ability to change direction at that kind of size. All right, JB, the CFL award nominees came out this week. I want to go through them and see if maybe there was an area where Toronto's guy was missed or looked over. So, most outstanding player, I don't think we're going to see it there. We kind of knew that, you know, Kadeem Carey was probably not going to come out of the East from the group that was there. Bo Levi Mitchell ends up being the MOP nominee for the East. I don't have a problem with that. I have no idea who's going to win between he and Brady Oliveira. I think that's really interesting. I'm not sure they've got the right setup for MOP and MOP voting yet, but we'll see who wins that one. I think that's going to be pretty close. Most outstanding Canadian, Liram Haralahu was the nominee for the Argonauts. I thought he actually had a chance there. The East's rep ends up being Isaac Adeyemi Berglund from the Alouettes, who we'll get to take a close look at on Saturday. Is that one that Haralahu should have maybe gotten the nod with the season he had? Maybe. Are you surprised, JB, that a kicker didn't get through for a Canadian nominee? I'm sure you're not.
I mean, I wasn't surprised. I think a kicker would have an uphill battle, you know, in terms of persona. One of the things Beatty had going for him is he had a little more sort of television magnetism. Hiralahu is more like the accountant. He comes in very, very efficient, but not, due respect, I think not necessarily grabbing the audience by the throat. That makes sense to me. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't need any more additional pressure on our kicker. I thought that the shoutout was nice, and now he can go about his business without worrying about any nonsensical award ceremony.
And you're referring to like Beatty's All-Star conversations last year. Like, those were really intense. They got really intense between like he and Sean White. There was a lot made of that leading into it. But yeah, whenever it just seems to me, whenever there's a choice not to take a kicker, people go that route. And so here with most outstanding Canadian, when you've got a kicker and someone that's not a kicker, I just feel like there's a bias where people are just drawn to, well, what is the, let's take a look at this other guy instead.
I think too, like, I think having been around for a while, like, it's almost like Canadian is really connected to like rookie too. Like, had he maybe been his second year and kind of came out of nowhere. But I think the fact that he's been around and he has been, effective in the past, I think people were sort of, I think that probably weighed in too.
Most outstanding defensive player, Toronto's nominee, Deshaun Amos. He was passed over for Tyrese Beverett. I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. Like I said last week when we were talking about the step prior to this, Deshaun Amos, I think, so quietly had an outstanding season. I would put him up against Tyrese Beverett. I would put him up against Roland Milligan Jr., who's the nominee out of the West. I think probably Milligan Jr. would take that head to head. But I think that I think he's right there with all these guys. So I don't have a problem with Tyrese Beverett. I think he had an amazing season. I totally get why he's there. I'm not going to complain loudly about it, but I just think I want to make sure that Deshaun Amos gets his recognition because of the outstanding season he had.
And not to skip ahead, but it looks good for him to be there Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get to the injury report, but certainly promising news that we saw today. Most outstanding offensive lineman there, Toronto does get their nominee, Ryan Hunter, going forward. I think he's got a really good shot. He's up against Logan Ferland from the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I think Hunter wins that. These guys both are there for their positional versatility. Hunter, we know, can play anywhere along the offensive line, moved from left guard to left tackle, didn't miss a beat. And maybe we'll tease this for later in the show. Could there be a move back to guard? Would we make the move back to guard if Isaiah Cage is able to go? We'll talk about that a bit later. For most outstanding special teams player, this is where Janarian Grant gets the nod. And this is where you have to kind of choose between Haralahu and Janarian Grant. Grant makes the most sense probably here because it's the only category in which he could be nominated. Haralahu could have been Canadian or special teams player. Voters going with the maybe the more exciting path of Janarian Grant, but I think that was the right decision. He was electric this season. I think he beats out Sean White, who was the West representative. I don't even know why, get Edmonton's punter in there as the West representative. Sean White, great field goal kicker, kicks in a dome stadium though, and even that, you hold up his field goal numbers, look at them against like Paredes or any of those guys out West, and guys bombing it away in Winnipeg, Castillo for 60 plus yards. I'm not even sure they got the right guy in the West, so I think Janarian Grant probably wins that one.
I mean, until the kickers get together and hire a company to do a montage to kickstart my heart with quick cutting kicks, they'll never beat a kick returner.
For most outstanding rookie, this was always going to be Nick Anderson, and I think it will be. He's the nominee out of the West, the outstanding linebacker. It's basically like a middle linebacker, but playing the will spot. Just an amazing rookie for the Elks. The East representative, Shamar Bridges, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, great season. I can't take anything away from Shamar Bridges. He's awesome. I think if Makai Polk came into the spotlight a few weeks earlier, he beats Shamar Bridges. Because I think if you held the vote now, I think Polk would win that because he's been electric the last few weeks. But really, his season didn't start until Chad Kelly returned to the lineup. And that's when he took off because Chad unlocked something that Cameron Dukes and Nick Arbuckle weren't really able to the same degree.
The downfield pass?
Yeah, the downfield pass. It was an important part of Makai Polk's game. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate there. But I think either one of them probably gets annihilated by Nick Anderson just based on the season he had.
And I love getting all this stuff out of the way. I don't want any of this stuff. I don't want any Argos up for MVP or MOP or any. Just be done with it. Let all the other teams have their nice little award ceremony. There's only one thing that this team is interested in.
I was saying that today. I was on a show in Saskatchewan today, and I was asked about the lack of award nominations for the Toronto Argonauts. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. From a coaching standpoint, I much prefer this. You don't want to go remember the East Final last year where right. Toronto's nominated for everything, and you don't think that's on the bulletin board in Montreal's dressing room where every Argo is nominated for a league award. That was the worst situation. Every Argo was an all-star, and you just got Montreal foaming at the mouth, ready to attack. This is a much better route. They've got two, great. They can go to and it's a lineman and a kick returner at that. Let everyone else battle it out. It's not something that Toronto has to stress about at all. I do prefer that. The last one, Coach of the Year. This one I want to talk about because I do want to give Coach Dinwiddie his shout outs here because I didn't think Coach Dinwiddie was going to have a shot at this. This typically for voters ends up being the coach with the most wins or the sort of it coach, I guess. And I think we got one of each of those. For Jason Moss out of the East and the Alouettes, they were the best team. They had the best record. And so obviously that's where the vote's going to go. And then Corey Mace out of the West. Winnipeg had a better record, but Winnipeg's done that before. And Corey Mace is sort of the exciting new face of the CFL coaching ranks. And so he got the nod out of the West. I think Coach Dinwiddie deserves recognition here. I'm not saying that he should have won this, but to do what he did, I think is really impressive. He didn't have his starting quarterback. Not only does he not have a starting quarterback, he didn't have arguably the best player on the team for the first 9 weeks of the season. The reigning MOP from last year, he was without for 9 games. And look at all the pieces that Toronto lost in the offseason as well. And everyone was talking about preseason. People had the Argos as dead. Before the Chad Kelly suspension, they had the Argos as dead. When you saw Pickett and Ouellette and everyone else go out the door and everyone signed in Edmonton and Hamilton. And then the Chad Kelly suspension. And yet, through all of that, they ended up finishing second, clobbered Ottawa in the playoff game. You look at the job that he's done heading into this East final, he should at least be in the conversation. I'm not saying that he needs to be the East representative, but I think it's a shame his job this year isn't being talked about more.
Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't get more respect from the people who cover the game or talk about the game, because exactly like, we may, time to time sort of more in humor sort of talk about challenge issues, but constantly we talk about this is a team that doesn't lose back-to-back games. This is a team that rarely loses to the same team twice. They are prepared. They are game planned. They are constantly showing us that they are a well-coached team. And then they have problems, and then they're able to fix the problems. They really, it never becomes a thing where, here are the 3 things that we complain about every week for a whole season. It just isn't the case. They are very good at fixing what is wrong, identifying and fixing what is wrong, able to do what they've done, as you mentioned, with like a complete turnover of the roster, new coaches. Like you lost the other coach of the year from your team. Usually that's going to have a pretty massive impact, and they were able to ride it out. I think he is. I think he is every bit Mike O'Shea is equal. And hopefully, I don't know what more they have to do, I guess, win another Grey Cup. Hopefully that starts to be the narrative. Maybe he should look more like he's cleaning the garage. But I don't know why he doesn't get the Mike O'Shea respect, because he certainly deserves it.
I think it will come, like especially if Toronto's able to win this game, and they've got, first of all, this is their 4th East final that they've been in 4 years. He's been the head coach. He's been a head coach for 4 years, and every season has been in the East final. 3 of those years winning the division, and then this year having to go the long way around, but he still got there. If he gets to the Grey Cup, and you've got 2 Grey Cup appearances in 4 years to go with 2 other East Final appearances, like you have to nationally start recognizing him a little bit more. Just because it's kind of tied to this, I wasn't planning on bringing this up in the pod today, but I just thought it was interesting. Mike Hogan put out a tweet today that blew me away. He said, regardless of which teams win on Saturday for both the East and the West, the Grey Cup matchup is going to feature 2 quarterbacks who won Grey Cups as Argos backups, and it's going to feature head coaches who have won Grey Cups with the Toronto Argonauts. That is a really interesting way to look at the organization and how they have, and not to say that Toronto props up the entire league, but we've talked over the last couple of years about how everyone that leaves Toronto seems to be sought after by every other team in the league. And here you've got Corey Mace as a coach of the year candidate in Saskatchewan, and various different players and player of the year candidates in their own teams that have come out of Toronto. And yeah, this is another example of Toronto finding great CFL players, coaches, and the rest of the league benefiting from that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that makes you want to call a Rough Rider call-in show and crow about.
I would enjoy listening to you call in a Rough Rider call-in show. I might poke the bear a little bit.
Don't cross it off.
That would be fantastic. I'd really enjoy that. All right, PFF. I was surprised, even though Chad Kelly had the highest PFF number of the week this week. I think it was 91 point something. I don't have it here in front of me. A prepared podcaster would have that right in front of them. I'm looking that up, though, as we speak and as I stall. But he had the highest score of the week this week. And I thought it was low. I thought it was going to be even higher than that. When you look at how well he played, 2 incompletions. That's 18 of 20. And of those 2 incompletions, one was because he was hit as he was throwing, and the other was the receiver running a different route where the receiver cut in and Chad Kelly threw a comeback. And that's it. Those were the 2 incompletions. I guess they might have docked him for the fumble, but I don't put that on him. That was a missed block on the offensive line. So that's the only thing I can think. The only reason his grade wasn't the highest of anybody for the entire season this past week was, I think, because of that fumble. But again, I feel like that's not properly assessed there. I feel like that grade's got to be 95, 96 based on what we saw.
He was smoked by one of the 3 best defensive linemen in the CFL at 100% speed, unblocked, no speed bump. The fact that he didn't throw the ball 10 feet in the air is amazing.
Yeah, for them to say, well, that's a scratch against Chad Kelly.
No, he's lucky. He's lucky to be, with all of his senses. That was as clean a run through you could give the best pass rusher or one of the 2 best pass rushers. No, it was cleaned up after that. I mean, you don't normally see quarterbacks, but I mean, there were some dagger eyes after that one.
Other Argos that were honored this past week, top receiver of the week, Makai Polk. That's not a surprise. He only caught 4 balls. That's the amazing thing. Like there's a stat that PFF came up with this week that I didn't have access to, and I thought this was just amazing. That he had 6.32 yards per route run. So for every route he ran, he was averaging 6 yards. So that's not receptions. That's not targets. That's every time he ran a route, the average was 6.32 yards, because that's those the 70-yard touchdown catch. To have 158 yards and a touchdown on 4 receptions, you're going to grade pretty high. Now you got to find a way to get Makai Polk the ball more, but the problem was they just didn't have that many offensive plays. That's the only reason. It's not like they looked away from him. He's still got a large percentage. He was getting almost a quarter of the targets, but when you only run 18 pass plays because you are scoring these long bombs and pick sixes, that's sort of what happens. And then the second top rated receiver was Devaris Daniels. So 1-2 for the Argos this week for PFF rating. Not surprised to see either of those guys there, obviously. On the offensive line, Dylan Giffen got the nod at left guard. Great to see him get recognized like that. And we're going to be talking about that left guard spot in a minute. And then Dejon Allen getting recognized at the right tackle position for his play last week. And I guess PFF assessing that hit we just talked about was on Vandal, the right guard, instead of Allen. I assume that's how they looked at it, if they're going to give Allen the top tackle spot, because that would be, if you put the blame on Allen, I don't see any way, just knowing how PFF works, there's no way that he would end up being the top rated tackle in that situation, because that would be an automatic like -2.5. Because it's just about as bad as it can get. When you let your quarterback get hit, it causes a fumble that is recovered by the other team in your own end. That's going to be a huge strike against. So I think that's how that worked out. And then defensively, Ralph Hawley, Jordan Williams, both getting recognized on the defensive line. Wynton McManus, that's not surprising at all. Benji Franklin at corner, he had that pick 6 play. Obviously, that factored in huge. And then Hairolahu and Janarian Grant both getting recognized for special teams. Only 4 teams in action this past week, so that's part of why Toronto got so many of these players recognized. But it also was a game in which so many points were scored, 2 pick sixes and record-setting performances all around. So not surprised to see Toronto doing so well. All right, it's time to get into our game preview, JB. So let's go through it. We've been waiting for this one. I think a lot of people in Toronto have been waiting for this one. I think a lot of people on Toronto have been waiting for this one. This is an opportunity for revenge, redemption. Last year, Toronto had a record-setting season, 16-2. They welcomed Montreal into their house for the East Final and were destroyed 38-17. a game in which Toronto really, they were close on the scoreboard at half. I think it was like 10-3, but it never really felt like anything was going. They went on to lose that one by 21 points. And their dream season, their record-setting season. This year against Montreal, they've played 3 times. The first 2, Chad Kelly wasn't a part of. The first one, Montreal won handily by a lot more than the score would show. It was 30-20, but Montreal dominated that game. That was at BMO Field. Then in July, Toronto went on the road, crushed Montreal 37-18, but Cody Fajardo got knocked out of that game. And so there's a little bit of an asterisk there. And then in September, back at BMO Field, the Argos win 37-31. This was the game where everything was working offensively for Toronto, and yet that score was only a 6-point margin because Toronto had 8 field goals. And we got to talk a little bit about this game preview. Like, this game has to be about converting opportunities into touchdowns, because that is the only reason that game was at all close. Remember Toronto's stats from that game: 234 yards rushing. They ran all over the Alouettes. 234 yards rushing is obscene. 517 total yards of offense. Chad Kelly in the game, 19 of 30 for 287, no touchdowns, 1 pick. That's, to me, like, if you look at this matchup, we know Toronto has the ability to move the ball offensively. I don't think there's any question about that. But if they can't convert those opportunities into touchdowns, this could be a long day. Do you see this game going similarly to the last one? Do you feel like Toronto can fix some of the issues that kept them out of the end zone? When you look at this game as sort of an overview, what do you expect coming into this? Is it just going to flip the script and be a defensive battle? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think that is in Toronto's favor. I mean, I think that if you are Toronto, you want to put points on the board. I think that Montreal's game is not putting 35. That's not who they are. Montreal 100% wants a rock fight. I think if you're in Toronto, you want to try and have a much more wide open game. I think it'll be very similar to the games they've played this season, which are that the teams are very close. It just is a question of, can you get a little momentum? Can you catch a break with an interception or a fumble? And if you can you really jump on your opponent? Not to spoil anything, but I like Toronto. I like Toronto. I like how they match up with Montreal. I think Montreal is good, but I don't think they're as good as last year. I'm not to be too coachy, but look, I think it's going to come down to turnovers. If Toronto does not turn over the ball, I think they beat Montreal every time.
It feels like a movie in a way, or a sequel, maybe, where you sort of a Rocky element to this. I don't know, but getting a chance to go back up against the team that took you out. Is this do you think this is what Toronto would have wanted? Do you think this was the exact situation? I know you always want to play at home. I know ideally you'd like to play against a team that didn't lead the league.
I like it in Montreal.
Wins. Yeah, that's the thing. I think this is way better. Explain from your point of view, why is this better that it's in Montreal?
Well, I think Toronto has shown over the last couple of years that, playing in Montreal is not the death knell that it used to be for the Argos. So I think Toronto feels confident. I think they feel confident they can go in and win a rock fight in Montreal because they have. So that's a big thing for a team to feel like we've come here, we've played tough, tight, close football games and come out with a win. So I don't think all those stupid horns in Montreal are going to, intimidate them or throw them or that crowd noise. Look, I know that team wants to just eat in front of that crowd and let them, some of that frustration of what was taken away from them last year. I mean, you don't want too much of that, but I think that, there will be there will be an edge to Toronto that they haven't had all season. I'm really looking forward to how that goes. I think you look. McManus will be a force to be reckoned with. I would not want to be a Montreal running back.
Let's get into this week's injury report. Montreal's had a couple of weeks to rest. Their roster looks pretty healthy. I think you're going to see pretty much the exact same unit that took on Winnipeg in that final game of the season, the game decided by that gust of wind that realigned the entire West Division. I think you're going to see that same group out there. I don't know that there's going to be a single player difference. It's a different group than Toronto has played this year, only because they've got Austin Mack out there at the receiver spot. So that is of concern, but they probably are not going to have Mustafa Johnson from the inside. Now he's been out since the Toronto game. I think he actually got hurt in that Toronto game in week 17 and hasn't returned since. He's got the knee injury. It's unlikely that he'll play this week. He hasn't practiced yet this week, missing both yesterday and today. That's a huge loss. Not so much against the run. That's a huge loss, though, as a pass rusher for Montreal. He has given Toronto problems. He's given everybody problems. He is just an elite interior lineman. So not having Mustafa Johnson, I think, will be big. The other one that stands out to me on their injury report, not necessarily worthy of alarm bells yet for Montreal, Joseph Zima, their punter, is on the injury report with a right knee injury. He was limited yesterday and today. I can't stress enough, well, maybe you can stress even more, having been a special teams coach as well, but how big a right knee injury is for a punter. And the fact that they're limited in practice leading up to a big game like this, a CFL final, Montreal's got to be worried about an injury like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a field position game. You do not want to give Toronto good field. I mean, that's Toronto's, whatever the reverse of kryptonite is, like that's Toronto's spinach. When Toronto has good field position, they are deadly. Toronto, you want to bury Toronto on the 5. Toronto has a much harder time. But if you give Toronto the ball at the 40, that's where Toronto wants to live. So that's a huge dynamic. If their punter can't pin the Argos.
I love that. I love how quick you were in coming up with spinach as the opposite of kryptonite. It's not wrong.
Very, very modern reference.
Yeah, but both of those. There's definitely half our audience that have no idea what you're talking about. That you're gonna have to Google that one. Spinach, the opposite of kryptonite. I agree with you. I think that's going to be huge. And we look at the Toronto injury report. Is mostly good news. So first of all, Deshaun Amos, this was massive because we talked about him in the show already. We've talked about him all season. Such an important part of this defense, the most underrated part of this defense. He had that scary looking knee injury. Having had a chance to now watch it since we last spoke to you, when I slow it down, it looks like it was more a contact injury. That's what we were speculating after the game when Coach Dinwiddie referred to it as a bone bruise. And it just looked like knees knocking together really hard and extremely painful, but at least not a ligament in all likelihood. And so he went limited yesterday, full today. That's a great sign. Now you're just waiting to see that he can go full tomorrow, because it's a question of how everything responds after going full today. So we'll have to wait and see, but that is really promising. The other one, Isaiah Cage, has now been full for 2 weeks at the left tackle spot. JB, do you bring Isaiah Cage back in? I know it's been going well along the offensive line. Toronto's O-line has been playing well. Giffin's been playing really well. They have been getting outstanding play from the rest of the line the whole season long. Hunter moved over, hasn't missed a beat. But do you bring Isaiah Cage back? Go with the original crew?
If I feel he's 100%, if I feel like, look, when I'm watching him on the field, he is 100%, or 90, let's say. Then yes, I do. I understand that there's no you don't want to just be putting your line into a blender all the time, because playing a line is much about guys feeling like one unit more than any other position. However, if you're not going to bring Cage back now, you're not going to bring him back for the Grey Cup. And then I don't think you can have Cage not playing all the way through the entire playoffs. I mean, unless you feel like yes, he can play, but really his knee is 80%. Like you're just like essentially he's healthy enough to play, but you don't like where it's at. But for me, if he's 90%, I think you do bring him back. You're not going to move anybody into a weird position. It's a better line. I'd be shocked if you simply didn't want Cage for the rest of the year, because if not now, you certainly I wouldn't not do it now and then do it for the Grey Cup.
Yeah, and we saw this a couple years ago with Nicastro, and again, we don't know
Yeah,
the level of
and
health,
and they
but
didn't.
yeah, they didn't bring him back. Now, again, we don't know. Maybe his knee just wasn't like he was able to go full, but he wasn't actually responding, 100%. Maybe the knee was at 70 or something. Who knows? But just looking at it in terms of practice reports, with all the information that we do have, it looks really similar to that Nicastro scenario a couple of years ago. And they just went with what they had, and they won the Grey Cup. And so you can't really criticize it. But
True.
yeah, I would
So I
say
guess in that way, I won't be surprised. But if Cage is good to go, I don't see how you can leave him on the bench, or not even on the bench, on the sidelines.
And then Demonte Coxey, after being did not practice yesterday, was limited today. I don't know if this is soon enough. I don't know. Again, we don't know the status of his knee. We don't know what he's feeling like. We don't know how it's responding. Tomorrow is obviously going to be key. I think if he goes full tomorrow, I think there's a good chance you see him on the roster. But if he's limited again tomorrow, I think that's far less likely. Obviously, if he doesn't practice tomorrow, I don't think there's any chance. But yeah, what do you do in that situation? You've got Jake Herzlow, who's coming off a really good game, but he's not Demonte Coxey. Montreal's corners are really good. They've given Toronto fits on the outside too. It would be nice to have Coxey there. But is this a situation where if he's not 90, same thing, you just stick
I
with what you
agree.
got?
Exactly. I think, and you have last week to show you. Look, having the extra defensive lineman was better. That Rudy came in and was great. Great energy, great fight. Just the kind of guy you want in a fight like this. You want Coxie at 90. I can't imagine he's going to be able to get to 90 this week. I think it for me, yeah, I think you rest again. You were able to be successful without him last week. Because if he's not 100, it's a waste of time. You don't want somebody out there who is a decoy. That works like for 4 plays, and then a team realizes that you're not going to go to somebody, and then it's a waste of a roster spot. And I think the Argos feel that way too. I'd be shocked if he played. I'd give him another week, and then come back full blast for the Grey Cup.
And then the third call that we've got to make is Fraser Sopik. Practices full
Yeah,
yesterday
now
and today.
I think this is the hardest of all the calls.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. He had the hand injury, practice full yesterday and today. Fraser Sopik, if he was starting, it's in place of Isaac Darkangelo. Now that changes your ratio all over the place too, and there's other questions in there. But let's just look at it from a football standpoint. Sopik does everything that's asked of him. He just doesn't make mistakes. That's the thing with Sopik. I don't think has the same level of athleticism that you see in Darkangelo. I think Darkangelo is faster. I think he's more aggressive in terms of attacking the run. He's a great tackler. Sopik doesn't do anything wrong. You're not going to find him out of position. You're going to find him being really disciplined. He'll run the play exactly as it's supposed to be run. I don't know. I don't know which is the better situation. Having Sopik certainly allows you a bit more roster flexibility because of his status. What do you do between those two guys?
Um, uh, Honestly, I would probably. It's so hard to know without like knowing, like, unless you're in the film room and you see, who is doing what you ask of them. I think Darkangelo's earned his spot. I think he's played incredibly well. Um, I think that tackling is going to be a huge aspect. I think physicality is going to be a big deal. I like what he's shown. To me, he's earned his spot, and you keep Sopek as is good to have. and it's somebody that you can roll in if you're able to win and somebody gets hurt. That's a nice addition to have on your roster. But I would probably stick with Jack Angelo. I think he's earned the chance to keep playing.
I think you look at both rosters, one with Sopik and one with Darkangelo. What is it? Does the roster you can make with Sopik, with him being Canadian, allow you to create a better roster overall? Or does Darkangelo being on the field give you a better roster overall? And I think that's how you make the decision. Say, look at this all together and say, is there anything else that this opens up? If not, you dress them both. And then you have Darkangelo out there starting, maybe getting the majority of the snaps, but no reason why you can't have them both out there on the field. So that's how I would handle it. Just draw it all up, see which one looks better to you on paper, and that's what you can run with. It's time for OCDC. For OCDC, we will start with the Montreal Alouettes. I'll go first on the offensive side of the ball. Here's my plan for Les Alouettes. So Toronto is definitely going to go all out to try and stop the run, because that's how Montreal's offense works. Like, if you stop the run, you basically have shut down Montreal's offense, not because they only run the ball. Obviously, they throw too, but they are the quintessential, like, run sets up the pass kind of offense. There's nothing like... There really isn't much special to what Montreal does on either side of the ball, other than they're just a really good team. They don't make a lot of mistakes, but they're pretty traditional in how they're laid out. There's not one area where you're like, well, we got to take care of this, otherwise they're going to kill us. They don't have a lot of holes. They're a strong team on both sides of the ball. They've got good special teams play. It's why they have the best record in the CFL. They're a really good football team. But if you can take the run away and force them to be one-dimensional, they are not a good enough passing team to only pass. You don't want to do that if you're Montreal. You can. They've had a few games where they've gotten away with that, and now, of course, adding Austin Mack changes things a little bit. But I think you're putting them out of their comfort zone if they're looking to throw on every down. And so I think Montreal, in terms of like how they're going to set up, you have to make sure that you play off of that. And so if Toronto is going to come in and stop the run and put all their resources towards that, I think you kind of have to operate a little backwards. And so you start with play action, and then you force Toronto to adjust out of this and get them off of their sort of hell-bent to stop the run mentality. So off that play action, you get Sneed, you get Speaker in behind the linebackers, you leak Walter Fletcher out, chip and release and things like that. And now once you get Toronto to pull back a little bit and stop sending everybody, stop run blitzing, now you go back to establishing the run, because you need that. You can't just rely on the pass. So I will pass, I will throw. Anytime I get Austin Mack one-on-one, I'm going to take a shot on the outside, give him 50-50 balls. I'm going to experiment too with the 6 wide stuff that Ottawa showed last week, just to see, has Toronto come up with an answer for that yet or not? So I'll try that out a little bit too, but I think it starts with keeping Toronto off, because if Toronto wants to stop the run, I think they can. I'm not going to just keep running Walter Fletcher into run blitzes. I'm going to use that play action to help me out. What does Montreal do on the defensive side of the ball, JB? How do they stop Chad Kelly and the Toronto Argonauts?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because Montreal's pass defense is very good. They've been very good at stopping the long play, the big play, the play over 30 yards. They've been very good at, just defensively. They've been very good at keeping the ball out of the end zone. They are a tough team to move the ball on. They're not they're not as good at stopping the run. In the same way that they're not as good as running. So I think if you're Montreal, I think you probably have to live and die with your pass, and you're just going to have to live with the fact that Toronto might run for 280 yards. Kelly, you saw in the Ottawa game, Kelly still wants those busts, and I think you just have to play it safer. If you're Montreal, I think you're going to have to keep more guys deep, take guys out of the box, play more DBs, play more pass defense. I think you have to play pass first against Toronto. You have to try and get in Kelly's head, whether you get an early pick, or he doesn't know what he's looking at necessarily. I think that's where your advantage is, and if Toronto can run on you, you're just going to have to live with that. So for me, um, I'm gonna keep, you're gonna keep basically three guys deep, as much as possible, and force Kelly to play the check down game. You want Kelly, you don't want Kelly with 18 passes. You want Kelly with 35 attempts, 41 attempts. I think that's a game plan if you're the Montreal defense. That's a win for you. I think you want Kelly's attempts to be over 30, because that's not what Kelly wants to do. And you don't. That's what you want. You want the quarterback doing what they don't want to do.
And sort of proof as to the success of your plan is that Toronto ran for 234 yards last time, and the game came down to the wire. Like Montreal was driving at the end of the game with a chance to win it, down 6. They were at midfield, first down at midfield, and 55 yards away from a win, despite allowing 234 ground yards. So yeah, I think your strategy is good.
I think they'll feel that. I think that they do. You have to make Kelly play patient ball. Ottawa was unable to do it, and they got the doors blown off them.
Switching to the good guys, my Toronto plan does not involve going up against your Montreal defensive plan. And if that's what you see from Montreal, I think you have to make adjustments from what I go into the game with. I actually don't think, just again, knowing football coaches, I can't help but think that their defensive staff was embarrassed by the last time these two teams met. Letting up 234 yards rushing in a loss, even though it came down to the wire, even though it was a tight game, I think that's got to eat away at you as a defensive coach. And I think you're watching, and the players too, like you're watching that game film for the last 2 weeks. You've been watching that film because they have to have felt that Toronto was coming out of that East semifinal. And so they have watched so much Toronto film, and they've watched that game specifically again and again and again. And it's Kadeem Carey with long runs and McMahon with long runs and Chad Kelly running the ball. And I don't think there's any way Montreal doesn't make it at least part of their defensive game plan to try and shut down the run. And so I want to try and take advantage of that. I actually start throwing from the get-go, but what Montreal gives teams trouble with is it's their outside the corners. Like Ento on the field side corner position, he does way more disruption, I think, than he gets credit for. Both corners in general make it hard for you. Like where they will give up yards is on the inside on those, and it's not even seams. It's not like busts like we saw last week with Polk or Daniels touchdowns. It's not that. It's the quick passes to those slot receivers, those digs to the slot receivers where you can find those linebackers coming in sometimes to try and clean up the run, and his play action that gets you a little bit of space over top. Not a lot, but I think that's where you have to throw the ball. So they're going to come out, I think, trying to take away that run, catch them shorthanded a little bit in the secondary, see if you can move Dequoy to one side of the field or other, fire to the slot on the opposite side. So you move, he's going to drift towards Polk. He's had so many good games in a row now. Look Polk's way, come back the other way to Daniels. There's going to be room there. There just is. And then I'm not opposed to running on second down, even 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. I think you can create first downs out of that. And I think you have to be aggressive and not be afraid to go for it in 3rd and 1 situations. I know that's been nerve-wracking for Argos fans, but I think you just get them to the line quick. I think, without Johnson in there too, get them to the line quick, sneak for that first down, be aggressive that way. And then the last thing, I think I want to stretch the field laterally a little bit. We haven't seen much in the way of jets and receiver runs. Get Kevin Mittal coming across the formation, run fakes, run misdirection off of that. See if you can release a big play off of that, the action of that sort. And then lastly, run Chad Kelly, roll him out. I love they had a couple of naked bootlegs last week. They were great. Those didn't really turn into runs. They turned into a couple of big passing plays. They turned into a touchdown. But I want Kelly outside the pocket sometimes where they can't just zero in on Chad standing in the pocket. Get him on the move. Get him to make a decision. If it's there, run. If it's not, throw. That's my offensive game plan. What does your defensive game plan for the Argonauts look like, JB?
Well, I expect them to do some of what Ottawa tried. I think if you look at Toronto's defense, that underneath tackling is what you want to test. You want to test, can these guys clean up screens, quick outs, um, quick underneath slants. Like, can the cornerbacks play physical and clean up and tackle in space? And I think they will test. I think they will test Toronto on that. I think it's a significant difference between this year and last year's Toronto team. So I expect to see that. I expect the running back to be a big weapon out of the backfield. It's not something Toronto defensively is that concerned with, which is not unusual in defenses. But for sure, Toronto is not a big defend the running back. So I expect them to test that underneath soft belly. Um, Montreal is not very good at running. So same deal with Ottawa. I think it's a blessing that Toronto can basically just play straight up, not have to do anything special to keep that. You can steal a guy out of the box for passing because you're not worried about Montreal running all over you. So I think that's great. Montreal wants to go down the field. Um, they love the big 30 plus plays. Um, they led the league in it. Toronto unfortunately led the league in giving them up. So like from a point of view, like it's not great. It's not a great matchup. No, those numbers are teams change over the course of the season, but I don't think you can give Montreal those dagger plays because they're not great in the red zone. So I think you play bend don't break with Montreal, and you make Montreal kick field goals, and you trade touchdowns for field goals. It's a very confident Toronto team. I was really impressed with their confidence when Ottawa went up, and there just wasn't a sense of panic. I think they can trade field goals for touchdowns with Montreal, and it's a race to 30. And I think if Toronto gets to 30, they win the game. So you just can't let Montreal have those, um, you know, old Gino, 40-yard down the rail bombs. You have to stay disciplined. You have to keep stuff in front of you. I know Montreal will move the ball, but then once they get into the red zone, they are not a good red zone team. So I think you can make a stand down there. So let them move the ball between the 20s and do not give them the 30 plus bomb. But it will be painful because Montreal is very effective. They will move the ball back and forth, but touchdowns for field goals is a recipe for a win.
My one thing this week is I'm asking a lot. I'm kind of incorporating multiple one things into my one thing. It's no catastrophic failures. So that means no turnovers and it means no busts that result in touchdowns. That's a lot. It's maybe cheating on one thing, but no catastrophic failures. If they can avoid giving Montreal free touchdowns or handing them the ball on their own 25-yard line, Toronto wins this game. I don't see any path to a Montreal victory if Toronto takes care of the football and doesn't hand out free touchdowns to the Alouettes. So that's my one thing. No catastrophic failures. JB, where are you going?
Mine is a first quarter lead. At the end of the first quarter, be winning. Um, it is whether you want to call it a statistical anomaly or causation and correlation and all those different debates. When Toronto is winning at the end of the first quarter, their win percentage is through the roof. I think, especially on the road, get a lead in that first quarter. The team is built to play with the lead. I think it makes all the difference.
And our one things keep not happening, and the Argos win in spite of that. But yeah, this is another one. And last week, of course, they did not have the first quarter lead or the first half lead for that matter, and it didn't matter. They blew up Ottawa in the second half.
No,
I agree though.
That game was but look, I think that the fact that didn't matter, shows how confident this team is. I think like this is a team that is not worried about coming back.
Prediction time. I'll give you mine first. I think this comes right down to the end. I think this is a highly stressful last few minutes of the game for both teams. I think Toronto comes out on top 31-30, And I think it is going to be in doubt until the very last second. A little bit like the last time these two teams played, but with way more on the line. And that time it was Montreal needing to drive for a field goal, getting to midfield before stalling out. This time, I think it comes down to a field goal attempt for somebody. Who is it? Do they hit it? Do they miss it? I don't know. But 31-30 is where I'm going.
I have a similar. I have Toronto 36-28. I think that they're, I don't think Montreal can win a shootout with Montreal, or can win. I don't think Montreal can win a shootout with Toronto. And if the scores are up in the 30s, I like Toronto a lot.
It's time for Put Me Down for 20. We were both in the green last week. We both had one win, one loss, but we hit with juice. Mine was plus 430, and so I'm up a few fleeces for that. Yours, you ended up getting 4.5 fleeces out of the week, so a win is a win. You are currently sitting at 101 golden fleeces of your original 200. I'm at 243 golden fleeces at the moment. Let's put them on the line again. But before we do, we want to remind you not to take any of our Golden Fleece wagers seriously. Only ever bet what you're comfortable losing as the cost of entertainment. And we certainly have proven in our long history that we should not be trusted with any bets that you place. My bets this week. I am inspired by my success at hitting that plus 430 last week. And this is why gamblers don't win in the long run. I'm going back to it. Because I think I can go even bigger. So my Argos bet for plus 170, I'm betting that Chad Kelly has more than 325 passing yards. I love that price on that few yards, and so that's where I'm going. 325, Chad's got to hit. And then for my non-Argos bet, I'm actually incorporating the Argos into my non-Argos bet, making it a parlay. I've got the Riders outright, they're underdogs, and I've got the Argos outright, both underdogs, and that pays off at plus 476. So that's my other 10 fleeces on that. Where are you going with your hard-earned fleeces, JB?
I'm going to go sort of finish big here. I have the Toronto defense scoring a touchdown anytime, plus 490. I think that the defense is going to be hungry. They're going to be aggressive and active. It will be the most physically engaged we've seen the defense this season. I think they're going to be coming looking for turnovers. So plus 490, I love a great deal. I don't know why the juice is so high there, but thank you. And for my second one, I love the Rough Riders just straight up to win the game at plus 180. I'll take that road dog juice.
Yeah, that's a good price. I do like that too. It's Winnipeg. It's so hard to win in Winnipeg, but I really like the Rough Riders right now. I think they're playing better football than the Blue Bombers. I think they match up pretty well against Winnipeg too. So yeah, I do like that. Time for our CFL picks. I did the tabulations this week to see how we were doing on the year with each individual team, because last year we were all over the place. Like some teams were giving me nightmares, some teams I was great with. It's pretty consistent that we do well with Toronto. That makes sense because the team that we cover, the team that we see each week. But you were pretty much even across the board. You did do better with BC, with Winnipeg, with Toronto, with Montreal. Everyone else, you were 9-9, which I think speaks to the parity in the league this year and just generally how difficult it was prognosticating how things went. But yeah, you were your best was BC. You were 13-5. For me, my best was the Argos and the Alouettes. Both of them, I was 14-4. And if you add in last week's playoff game as well, I guess then it'll be 15-4 for the Argos. And then everyone else, I'm hanging around the 10 or 11 win mark. My worst was Ottawa, which was 9-9. Because I just felt all year that they were not nearly as good a team as was being projected. If you look at like what I did with Ottawa, I started out 3-0 with Ottawa, and then I lost my next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row that Ottawa played. I got wrong because I kept picking against them and they kept winning. And then I finally figured them out at the end of the year where they started dropping things. So that's where we stand right now. Let's go into this East and West final week, JB. Toronto at Montreal. I'm sticking with the Argos. Are you?
I am, yeah. I think they're the better team, and they are not going to turn the ball over 9 times.
Saskatchewan at Winnipeg. I like the Riders in this. I realize it's a risk because, again, Winnipeg's impossible to win in, but Toronto proved it can get done. I've got Saskatchewan. Are you hedging?
No, they were my preseason pick to win the Grey Cup. I like what they've done there. I think they went through some tough times. They're playing really good ball right now. Winnipeg is very good, but I just think Saskatchewan's got the juice.
JB, on the season, you're 45-36-2. I'm 53-28-2, and so it is out of reach. I have claimed the title this year, got it back after you stole it from me last year. And I want to remind you, too, that I've still got some golden fleeces in play from week 1 where I set a futures bet because the juice was so high. I have the Riders plus 1,100 from week 1 to win the Grey Cup. And so that still is hanging in the balance as we sort out the winner of our Golden Fleece competition as well. Saturday, 3 o'clock, Toronto at Montreal. You can listen to the game, Mike Hogan and myself, on TSN 1050. And of course, you can watch it as well. Maybe some of you are making the trip out to Montreal too. And if you are not, you got to get down to Something in the Water Brewing. Join JB. It's going to be a great time down there with the game projected, with the sound system and everything else. It will be a party. Toronto at Montreal, Saturday, 3 p.m. That will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Together, fight the foe.